Hello, and welcome to your Grow Groups this week. My name is Jessica, and we are so glad that you've gathered together to continue this conversation on our series, Jesus in Real Life. As we're going through this series, you'll notice that some of these questions sound a little bit familiar and similar each week, and that's intentional. We're trying to look at some questions in multiple ways, seeing how we can reflect on them throughout our weeks, and maybe even anticipate them for the weeks ahead. This week, we are talking about the I am statement when Jesus says, I am the bread of life. I'm joined by Janessa. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
So good. So glad that you could join us.
I always love hanging out with Grow Groups.
We love hanging out with you. So our first opener is a classic, apparently. What is your favorite sandwich?
I do love a grilled cheese. I feel like you can't go wrong with a grilled cheese.
You can do a lot with a grilled cheese.
Yes, exactly. But at one point, it becomes a panini if you add too much to a grilled cheese.
We entered the conversation of semantics.
Yeah, because then it becomes, what is a sandwich?
Discuss amongst yourselves.
What is a sandwich? Yeah.
Jesus never commented on that one, so I'm not going to.
Wish.
I'm sure he might have had an opinion. What a conversation amongst the disciples.
True.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. I love that. So as we're talking about this conversation of the bread of life, I'm curious, what do you first think when you hear that Jesus is the bread of life?
I mean, my first thought immediately kind of goes to communion because that's just like you often hear that. Like, I mean, there's bread at communion. So that's like the first place my mind goes. But then it's also just like Jesus sustains you. Like bread is just so comfy. It's so good. It's so filling. So yeah, Jesus is just filling and sustains you.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's absolutely a lot to that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we grew up, I think our late teen years in the phase where everyone was kind of demonizing bread.
Yes.
Like our culture was.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've even found this weird, like, no, it's substance.
Mm-hmm.
There's too much of a good thing. That is absolutely allowed. But it's still this beautiful substance that does give us life and does give us energy.
Right. Even like kind of now, like bread is like, oh, you can't have too much bread. That's too bad for you. But it's like, no, like, again, substance. It's filling. It can help sustain you through your day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's just such a good little snack.
Such a good snack. And if we're intentional about, like, I love the process of baking bread.
Yes.
I received this really delicious recipe from my Aunt Mary that I love to make kind of like a sweet but dense bread. And just, you don't have to knead it because I'm very bad at kneading it. It's become a family joke. But it's so fun to watch the way like it rises and it takes on this new life of its own that then we get to take part of. And so, of course, I cannot sit down and eat an entire loaf of it.
Right.
But it's just this good substance. And so as we are moving through this week in this conversation, what do you feel that you need from God, Jesus, or the Spirit to feel sustained?
I'll always rest, especially like in the spring to feel sustained. I need to build in rhythms of rest, which I mean is a process of just baking dough as well. Like baking bread, you have to let it rest, have to let it rise. Because like in the spring things, like calendars fill up really fast. You got spring sports, you have family gatherings, you have spring break. Like it's a lot. So building in intentional times of rest to just be like, oh, like I can be sustained by God's promises through this in my times of rest. I think that's what I really need right now.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, that's even in the bread baking process, those moments of intentional rest. I was even thinking, yes, that's also my number one answer. But part of me was almost like miracles. Like I feel sustained when I see miracles, but with the caveat, it's when I'm seeing them.
Yeah.
It's not that they're not happening. It's not that I need someone to be doing miraculous wonders. It's that I need to probably slow down and just open my eyes at, like new life being born. That's miraculous seeing that grow. And that kind of connection. And that is just as much on me. And that's when this season of Lent is so beautiful and powerful, as it's a pause. It's this reminder for at least 40 days to be like, where am I resting and where am I looking? Yeah. I think that's substantial for me in my faith life.
Yes.
All right, so as we want to take these Jesus in real life into our real life this week, I'm curious, how can you remember Jesus when you eat a meal?
I mean, again, we've talked about this with every question, but it's like thinking about the process of everything. Like when you sit down and like just thinking through like, where did the food on my plate come from? And like praying over all of those steps almost makes it would be a very slow meal, but it makes it very intentional because you're like, oh, cool. Like I can pray over like the farmer that like braised this grain or the cows or the whatever it is, like the whole step, the process of getting the food like on a truck and the truck driving it to my grocery store, like those kind of things, like seeing the entire process, to slow down and pray over all of that is like a thing I think I could do maybe this week as I'm thinking about Jesus as the bread of life.
Absolutely. It's that intentionality of it. And it's funny that you say that would be such a long meal, but I don't think Jesus had fast meals.
I don't think so either.
So I think that's even an embodiment of Jesus, of the like lounging and the being together and letting your meals take a couple of hours.
Yes. I had a mentor in high school where we would do this, like we would meet and we would do that together. Like wherever we were, like we were at like a Mexican restaurant and we were thinking through all of that. And so like even just like with friends, that was something that was an intentional way to like slow down the process of eating so we can be together and think through the entire process and pray over the entire process.
Absolutely. And it's not even this like intense moment. Like you get to, it can be playful and it's fun, and you get to ask questions like that you may not want the answers to, like where does chorizo come from?
Right. Yeah.
And then you'll be more intentional about your diet and the things that you're choosing, and circling back to the even idea of like when we have too much of our like kind of chemically laden breads, like what does it sound like to have the good breads that we've seen or that we've even made, or more intentional about what we're ingesting.
Especially in a season of Lent where a lot of people give up different types of food, like a sweet, or like I gave up meat last year. And so just thinking through those kind of things within that process is also an interesting like thought exercise.
Ooh. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people give up fast food over Lent, but more from the idea of like saving money and eating healthier. But I hadn't thought about just like fast meals. Taking time to, when we eat, I'm going to sit down for at least an hour.
Yes.
45 minutes.
Whatever it is for you.
Whatever that can look like in a work day, right? That's hard to squeeze in. Well, this is so great. So many great things that we can remember and be intentional about in our lives this week. I'm so grateful for your time with us today, Janessa.
Anytime.
Absolutely.
Love hanging out.
We like you. We are so grateful for you and your groups coming together. Take some time to pray for one another throughout this week, maybe over mealtime, maybe plan a meal together as a group. And we can't wait to see you next week as we continue our series, Jesus in Real Life.